Pranam Jai Janendra. Welcome to the second class in this series of uh, classes on the 10 Shravaks of Bhagwan Mahavir. Let's start with the prayers. Namo Orientanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sappapavapanasano, Mangalananche Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Namo Orientanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sappapavapanasano, Mangalananche Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Namo Orientanam, Namo Sittanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sappapavapanasano, Mangalananche Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. वीर सरसुरासुर नमहितो विरमुदा संस्कृता वीरेणाभियत स्वकर्म निचयो वीराय नित्यं नमः वीरातीर्थमिदं प्रौतमतुलं वीरशघोरं तपो वीरे श्रीधृति कीर्तिकान्ति निचय श्रीवीरभद्रं दिश कमठे धरणेन्द्र च सूचितं कर्म कुरुति भूस्थल्य मनोवृत्ति पार्श्वनाथ श्रीस्तु वः अंगूठे अमृत बसे लपति तणा भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम से मरिये मनवांचित फलदाता. We started this particular topic last week, and it's about the 10 particular Shravaks or Jain householders who lived at the time of when Bhagwan Mahavir was alive. As I mentioned last week, these Shravaks are mentioned in various texts, but the source of this particular extensive detail is from a particular granth or particular text called Vasagadasa, meaning the 10 upasaks of Bhagwan Mahavir. Upasaks meaning those who distinguish themselves by their conduct as householders, and their examples were given by Bhagwan Mahavir to the monks and nuns as exemplary conduct during the performance of their vows as Shravaks and Shravikas. The focus is on 10 Shravaks, but as we discussed last week, Bhagwan Mahavir's Sangh had many more Shravikas than Shravaks, but they were all great. And when we talk about Shravaks and Shravikas, we are here talking about those who had taken the vows of a householder's dharma. So as you all know, all Tirthankar Paramatmas preach two types of conduct or dharma to be adopted, with those with the ability and the level of detachment that they can come up with in their lives, and those who are able to take the dharma which is called sarva virti. Virti means to be, to take, to separate yourself from all your desires and other things in life. So sarva virti means all encompassing detachment and leaving behind the life of a householder in sansar and becoming a monk or a nun. And then the second path is described as Des Virti. Des Virti is Sarva is total, Des is limited. So limited Virti is what is constituted in the 12 vows of a Shravaka and a Shravika. And every Tirthankar Paramatma preaches this twofold path of total detachment or partial detachment. And as a result of that, the Sangh or the conglomerate of all the people who form part of that particular Tirthankar Sangh is called Chaturvid Sangh. Chaturvid meaning the fourfold Sangh, and that includes Sadhu, Sadhvi, Shravak and Shravika. So monks, nuns, and householders, men and women who have taken the vows to follow, but all others who are following the path, that is called Chaturvid Sangh. And that, by definition, is the Tirth. Tirth means, in simple words, the term Tirth is anything that guides us out of sansar, meaning the cycle of life and death, is Tirth. So Tare Te Tirth, that is in Gujarati a simple explanation. And the Tirth that we are currently living under is Bhagwan Mahavir's, the 24th Tirthankar's Tirth. So these are just some terms that you would come across if you were reading or listening. Now, let's go further in our discussion about the first Shravak described in this series. And at the end of today's class, I will just introduce the life of the next Shravak that we'll be discussing next week. Let me share my slides now. So the title is Religious Lives of Bhagwan Mahavir's 10 Shravaks and Shravak Dharma. However, we are going to go a bit deeper into the principles behind this. So last week we discussed the 12 vows of a Shravak, and we had some basic understanding of the vows. Uvasagadasao, the religious lives of Bhagwan Mahavir's 10 Shravaks and Shravak Dharma. So these are describing some essential aspects of their lives, and the focus is on mainly what they did after they accepted those vows to ultimately teach us the importance of these vows and how these great Shravaks actually fulfilled their vows and lived their lives, uh, and the conduct that they uh, performed during the time after they had taken those vows. So again, throughout this course, we are going to learn about Shravak Dharma, the importance of these 10 Shravaks that we are going to learn about, and what do we learn from their lives. Again, just to recap what we talked about last week about the 12 vows, and normally they are divided into 3 different categories. The first 5 are called Anuvrats. The term Anu means minuscule or microscopic or atomic in comparison with the 5 vows of a monk and a nun, which are called Mahavrats. So there are the first five vows of a householder are called five anuvrats. Anu means small in comparison to the Maha vrats that the monks and the nuns take. So, in brief, avoid gross hinsa. Gross means, as I was explaining last week, it's not as minutely specific as that of a monk and a nun. So, avoiding actions that will harm other living beings to the extent to which it is possible as a householder, the vow is to avoid that kind of violence. Avoiding or not telling gross untruths, avoiding or not telling or not taking part in gross or obvious thefts. The fourth vow is of sthul prana, Swadhara Santosh Parsti Graman Virman Vrat, meaning being satisfied with your spouse or spouses, whoever you're married with. And in those days, people could have had more than one wife, but being satisfied with that. The fifth vow, in the text that I'm referring to, we have generally heard it as parigraha pariman, meaning limiting the wealth that you have, uh, sort of limiting the amount of wealth that you will hold. So, parigraha pariman vrat is here described as ichha vidhinu pariman, meaning you restrict your desires. So, form boundaries beyond which you will not desire anything. In many ways, that definition is actually more, it's wider and all encompassing. And it's not, though the focus is on wealth, it also teaches you, the term itself teaches you that all your desires are parigraha. So if you feel that you need or want something, all your wants are something that you should limit, that one should form boundaries, that for these particular things, these are the number of items that I will hold, and I will not buy or store or collect anything beyond that. And in many ways, if you look at our lives and look at the parigraha that we accumulate, and without thinking, we have no limits to our desires. Having a vow that decides your limits is actually very useful. And if you look at the fundamental principles of Jain Dharma, we generally all have heard that there are three, which is ahimsa, aparigraha, and anekantvad. Aparigraha is particularly talking about this particular vow of limiting your desires, or parigraha pariman vrat. These are the first five anu vrats or anu vows or minuscule vows. The sixth, seventh, and eighth are called gun vrats. Gun vrats meaning they enhance the performance or the quality of your first five vows by giving you further guidance on the limits of certain things that you may not, that may interfere with your conduct in the first five vows. So traveling beyond a certain predetermined boundaries. So you may decide that I will not travel more than 5,000 miles or 10,000 miles, or you can phrase it in any way that these are the only countries that I will ever visit, or these are the limits to where I will go. You can include the whole world into that, but you can then decide that if space travel becomes available, then I will not travel beyond a certain distance up into the sky, or those kinds of things. But people used to limit their travel to certain distances, and you can be as specific and as wide as you want to be. But the important thing is to decide to record, to remember, and to follow. The seventh, eighth, ninth, these are the, sorry, sixth, seventh, and eighth. So the three gun vrats are sixth, seventh, and eighth. The seventh is Bhog Upbhog Pariman Vrat, meaning you set a limit to things that you would use in terms of consumption. Bhog means those which are consumed once, and Upbhog are those which are consumed again and again, meaning things like clothes and those kinds of things. The eighth vow is about avoiding activities that are generally of no great value, and they are a source of one getting engaged with all kinds of kashais, meaning anger, and so people would limit, say, watching television, watching films, watching Anarth Dand Viraman Vrat. So conducting businesses which do not necessarily have any or that you can avoid. So businesses that may harm other living beings, or industries that may create materials or things that may be used to harm other people or other life. So some of those things uh, can be included in that. The ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th, those are called the four Siksha Vrats, or the Char Siksha Vrat. So the ninth is do Samaik daily. The 10th is about Desavagasik, meaning doing 10 Samaiks in one day. And that is something that you have probably had the opportunity to see here, because we have, I think at Ekta and even at Portis Bar, I think, conducted this uh, on certain days. The 11th is Pausadupwas Vrat, meaning you live the day like a monk or a nun. Uh, you may fast the whole day if possible. If not, then they would be, or you would make arrangements in advance about having a meal somewhere. So all these can be done, but arrangements would need to be made. And that is called Pausodupwas Vrat. The 12th Vrat is Atithi Samvibhag Vrat, meaning looking after sadhu, sadhvi, shravaks, shravikas, and uh, deciding how you would serve them. So these are the 12 vows: 5 anuvrats, 3 gun vrats, and 4 siksha vrats. Now, we heard last week that Anand Shravak once approached Bhagwan Mahavir when he had come outside the city state in which Anand Shravak and his family and his community were living. So this was Vanijya Gram, and the king there was Jitsatru. When Bhagwan Mahavir comes outside the city and people hear about that, everybody goes, including the king, and Anand Shravak goes there as well. And after listening to Bhagwan Mahavir, Anand Shravak uh, decides that he would like to take the vows of Shravak, and citing to Bhagwan Mahavir that he at the moment was not capable of becoming a monk. Therefore, he would like to take up the path of a Shravak with a limited conduct of charitra, that is Desvirti. And Bhagwan Mahavir says, as you please, and the details of the 12 vows are explained. There's one slide that I had written here that has disappeared, but that's okay. One of the things that I wanted to explore today was that how many of you have heard this term Sri Samyaktva Mood Bar Vrat? I'm sure most of you have heard this, but do you remember where and when? Sri Samyaktva Mood Bar Vrat कुल 124 अतिचार माही अतिचार माह सम्यक्त्व मूल बार व्रत. You're all familiar with the term samyaktva?
Yes, yeah.
What do you understand by the term samyaktva mood bar vrat?
No, heard it many times, but isn't it that that's what you've decided, or that's what you're going to be?
Why is it prefixed by samyaktva? What is the meaning of the word samyaktva and mood? You've ever thought about?
Isn't it? It's right. Don't you say samyak jnana and samyak charitra? So that's right
knowledge.
conduct and right knowledge and all that. Is it something similar to that?
Yeah, but what does the term actually convey to you? Samyaktva mood bar vrat.
Is it 12 vows in faith, in religious faith?
What is the idea behind? What is mood? What do you understand by mood?
Main. Root word. Root vow.
Root. Exactly. So the root, the foundation of the proper conduct of these 12 vows starts with accepting samyaktva. Now, in general terms, what do you understand by samyaktva?
Right belief.
Right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct.
Belief. Yeah.
Okay. So, Samyak Darshan Gnan Charitra. But other way it is described is that having a faith in the right God, Sudev, Suguru, and Sudharma. The right teacher and the right path that you follow. So having faith in all these three. But beyond that, what really in terms of the spiritual development of the soul, Samyaktva is a particular step in the spiritual development. So it is actually a stage in the 14 gunasthans. So in real terms, a person is said to have, a soul is said to have achieved samyak darshan when he reaches that particular stage. All these other components that we described constitute that or go towards that, but the fundamental change in the soul's condition, so one only achieves that one when a significant amount of monia karma has actually stopped functioning as monia karma, meaning it may either have been destroyed. If it has been destroyed significantly, then it is called kshaik samyaktva. If it has been suppressed partially and destroyed partially, then it's called kshayopsmik samyaktva. And when it is just suppressed without destruction, so that the soul recognizes its true self, meaning the soul distinguishes itself in its knowledge, the soul realizes that who it is or who the soul is, as opposed to and identifies with that reality. Currently, our identification is with our body, our family, our accumulations, our identities, our relationships. And if we look deeply into ourselves and then realize if all this disappeared tomorrow, can we detach ourselves and realize who we truly are? Most of us can't even imagine what that would be like because our identity is so entwined with all that is external to the soul. So in real terms, when a Shravak takes his vows, he's actually progressing to the fifth stage of his Gunsthan. So, Avirat Samyak Drasti is the fourth Gunsthan, meaning that he has not taken any vows, but he has the right evolvement of his soul to the extent that he has gained self-recognition as an Atma, as soul, and he has the faith in the right Dev Guru Dharma. But when he steps further and begins to limit his exposure to the world outside and takes vows to limit his activities that are wrong and harmful, which are not the dharma of the soul, but when those limitations are by themselves limited, meaning they are not complete, they are the vow is with certain caveats. They are not absolute vows. Then it is called Desvirti, meaning limited virti. And that is the Shravak Dharma. So that is the meaning of the term Sri Samyaktva Mood Bar Vrat. And whenever Shravaks and Shravikas go to Guru Bhagwans and say, I want to take a vow, the exposition of that vow or the vows like this, the Shravaks Dharma vows, would start with the foundation, with the mood, with the root of Samyaktva. That is why the terms there is Samyaktva mood bar vrat mathi 124 અતિચાર માથી જે કોઈ પણ અતિચાર પક્ષ દિવસમાં એ ચોમાસી દિવસમાં એ સંવત્સરી દિવસમાં એ જાણતા અજાણતા लाग्यो હોય તે સભી હું મન વચન કાય કરી મિચ્છામી દુઃખડમ. Meaning, if in the conduct of any of these vows and the samyaktva, if my conduct has not been as prescribed and I have taken liberties, knowingly or unknowingly, then I ask for forgiveness. And the beginning of that atichar, we are also talking about atichars of samyaktva, gnanacharna atichar, darsnacharna atichar, charitracharna atichar, tappacharna atichar. So the description of all this is incorporated in the Vanditu Sutra in detail, further in the Atichar Sutra. So next time you hear all this, try and remember and try and understand what this 12 vows and what Samyaktva is. Let me share the slides again. We'll move forward because that particular slide, some reason, disappeared. Anand Shravak. In the vows he took, there is a lot of detail about all the different things that he limited himself with. In many ways, and I've not prepared a slide for all the detailed description that we can see in the text, but some of the limits, the description about the limits that he set himself for the first 5 anuvrats are simple enough, and those were as would be more or less standard. When it came to the 5th vow, that means limiting his desires, this is what he decided. Last week, we learned about the extent of his wealth, and we learned that he had 4 Hiranya Koti Nidhanma, meaning he had deposits or the wealth equivalent to 4 Hiranya Koti. I am not aware of what the term Hiranya means, but I presume it is a huge amount. I suspect it exceeds trillions, Koti, and so in many ways, he was probably a trillionaire or a billionaire in today's terms. He had 4 as sort of preserved wealth, He had 4 which was being circulated on interest to other people who needed the money. So they were basically a banker as well. And he was using about 4 of this amount of money in the running of his household and his business. So his expense account was massive as well. And this is about money or gold or whatever we want to call it. Then, if you remember the words during Atichar, in those times, the number of uh, cows and bulls and horses and elephants that people used to keep. So different people had different amounts of wealth, and that was also something that was considered as their wealth. And as we heard, Anand Shravak had 4 vraj, vraj meaning a collection of cows, and the total that he had was 4 vraj, each vraj of 10,000 cows. So he had actually stables of about 40,000 cows. Now, the limits that he lays down when he accepts this vrats are thus. He says that whatever I have now, I will not increase or change it. So to describe it in a different way, he says, if I've got 4 trillion in the bank, I will not increase that amount. But I will not start changing that as well. So, okay, it's in the bank, but now I'll hold it somewhere else. So he's setting a limit that I will not earn any more than this. And not only that, he says, I will not increase that, but I will not tell my son or my family members or advise them about increasing that wealth further. Also, the number of cattle that I have, the cows, the 4 grudge that I have, I will not increase any more than that. He was also a huge landowner, and his land was mainly farmland. And he says that I will not accumulate any more land than that which I can farm with. So basically, the term here is plowing. So he says 500 nirvartan satik harthi khedi sakai. So if you got a plow, so in those days you have got 2 bulls and a plow, and you have a piece of land that is plowed when the season comes to seed it. And his limits were that I will not have any land beyond what I can plow with 500 Nivartan Satik Harthi. So with 500 plows, so we can just imagine how big the amount of land that he must have had. 500 નિર્વર્તન સતી ખડથી ખેડી શકાય તે કરતા વધારે જમીન ન રાખવી. So I will not have any more land than that. ગામતરું કરનારા 500 અને ખેતરમાંથી માલની લાવજા કરનારા 500. So he also set a limit. For traveling, he decided that he will not have more than 500 sort of chariots run by bulls or pulled by bulls. And to bring the harvest from the farms, Again, he will not have more than 500. Gada means sort of lorries. In today's terms, you would call it a lorry, but there he would basically be talking about uh, a large carts which are pulled by strong oxen or strong bulls. So he's setting a limit to the amount of land, the amount of vehicles or lorries in our terms, but lorries pulled by bulls, not mechanical lorries. 500 અને ખેતરમાંથી માલની લાવજા કરનારા 500 ગાડાથી વધારે ગાડા ન રાખવા. મુસાફરી કરવા માટે 4 અને સામાનની લાવજા માટે 4 વાહનથી વધારે વાહન ન રાખવા. So in addition, he actually had seagoing vessels in his possession, and he was owner of. So he decides a limit that I will not have more than 4 seagoing vessels for goods and not more than 4 for travel. So one can imagine what the extent of his wealth and what he had was. So he sets his limit according to what he had. Then the limit that he sets about the different things that he will use on a daily basis in terms of, say, to wash with, to spray, the kind of perfumes that they would use, uh, what he would use to brush his teeth. So what is described here is લીલી જેઠી મધ સિવાય બીજા કસાનું દાંતણ ન કરવું. ક્ષીરા મલક સિવાય સ્નાનમાં બીજું ફળ ન વાપરવું. So in those times they must have been using things like certain fruit to sort of clean their body with. And I have not heard of this, but somebody might know. Kshira malak. સિવાય સ્નાનમાં બીજું ફળ ન વાપરવું. It's a kind of fruit that is used to wash oneself with. સતપાક અને સહસ્ત્રપાક તેલ સિવાય બીજું તેલ શરીરે ન છોડવું. So in those days they used to use oils to use on their skin or to preserve their skins, and he decides on a limit of using only 2 types of such oils. So in great detail, there are descriptions here about all the different things. બે ક્ષોમ યુગલ સિવાય વધારે કપડા ન પહેરવા. So he decides that he will only use 2 pieces of cloth as his garments at any one time. That's how I understand it. So there is detail here about what he decides that he would be eating, what kind of sweets that he would eat. So he sets limits for all these things for the rest of his life. And one can only imagine the detail with which he decided all this, and the detail with which he then actually remembered and followed that for the rest of his life. And then Mahavir Bhagwan, while he's taking these vows, emphasizes the potential breaches of samyaktva, and he explains to him that what are the things that he needs to avoid. Then he also explains to him that if he has taken these vows, then what are the potential breaches of these vows? Then he also explains to him, so Bhagwan Mahavir in detail explains the meaning of the different vows and what are the breaches of those vows. And he goes into further details of how he would progress in life, and we'll learn soon that how he progresses there. And then he asks Bhagwan Mahavir several questions about clarifying what he understands, and then departs. And once he has taken all these vows in the presence of Bhagwan Mahavir, he goes home, and with great joy he describes what he's done to his wife and uh, encourages her to do the same. So she rushes to where Bhagwan Mahavir was, and she also comes back with having taken her vows as well. So this is something that husband and wife did together on that day. For many years, and the description here is that he carries on with this life for about 15 years and performs and conducts himself within the limits of these 12 vows very diligently. एम करता करता शीलवत गुरुणवत निर्वण प्रत्याख्यान पौषध उपास्थि आत्मा ने बराबर भावित करतो आनंद श्रवण प्रासक 14 वर्ष, sorry, 14 years. On the 15th year of his life as a Shravak, somebody who has taken the vows as a Shravak, he begins to think that maybe the time has come for me to retire from all these businesses that I've been conducting. And he thinks that if I want to progress spiritually further, then I should really reduce my responsibilities and give a lot of this up and go further in the practice as a Shravak. And he decides that he will hand over everything to his eldest son. And he talks with his son, takes his permission so that he agrees what he is being handed over. And he says that I'm going to retire not just from the business and everything else. I'm actually going to retire away from the household and go and live in kind of an upashray, but the term that is used is Paushad Shara. So this is where Shravaks and Shravikas would perform Paushad. And he, in the particular area that was called Kolak Sannive, so it was a particular suburb of that city, Gnat Kshatriyona Mohlama. So this was an area where there were Kshatriyas who were living there, where this Paushad was situated. He goes and examines it and decides that everything is satisfactory, and then gives up his home, his household, and settles down there. Again, the purpose is not to have this is sort of a retirement home, but a retirement home with very little comfort or no comfort. Then he calls all his other community members, all the other people who were relying on him because he was a very prominent person in the community. And he invites them all and explains to them that he is now taking the next step in his life and he's going to retire from this, and that they he has trained his son and they should consider him as somebody who will take Anand's place and be supportive of the community in the same way as Anand was, and that the people of the community could rely on his son as they had relied on him before. And he says, માટે હવેથી તમે કોઈ બાબતમાં મને પૂછશો માં કે મારી સલાહ માંગશો માં. So don't come and ask for my advice because I'm retiring from this life. તમારે જે કાંઈ કહેવું કરવું હોય તો તે મારા જ્યેષ્ઠ પુત્રને જ કહેજો. કે tell my eldest son anything that you may want some help with or advice from. And he also says, don't make anything in particular for me. His son accepts this, the community accepts this, and then he takes everybody's permission and he goes to this Pausatsara in this Kolak Shanives, the Kolak suburb. He cleans that place, ensures that whatever he may need in terms of the arrangements for discarding waste and things like that. And then he takes the vows of what is called Pratima. So during the Kalpsutra Vanchan, we hear about this, that a Shravak's 11 Pratimas, Agyar Pratima. We won't go into the details of that, but that is an advanced path to follow for a Shravak and a Shravika. And he starts performing the 11 Pratimas and does that well. It's a kind of a very advanced tap. And because of that very intense tap, the description here is that his body becomes very dry, very thin, and he began to look like a skeleton. So he performs very severe penance, severe tap. Then he thinks that I have performed all this, but I still have strength and energy. And Bhagwan Mahavir is still around. So the time has come for me to end my life. And he decides that he should accept Sanlekhna and end his life. Let me stop sharing here for a minute. Have you heard the term Sanlekhna?
No, I haven't.
Yes.
Anybody? Yeah, Bijalben?
Yeah. I think it's like towards the end of life where you decide to give up the kind of like live like Sadhu Bhagwant and give up everything and eventually take on sun, which is give up food and water as well.
Yeah. So Ajitbhai has said fasting unto death. So that is Sanlekhna. And that is a accepted way of ending life, that I lived my life, I now want to end it. And people may take Sanlekhna for other reasons, depending on the kind of, if there are some severe difficulties or if one has still got the intellectual ability but has completely lost physical freedom or physical abilities and is unable to conduct themselves in any meaningful way physically, then people take this particular vow called Sanlekhna. And even in this day and age, we do hear of people who have taken those kinds of vows. And in my life as a doctor, I've been asked about this once by a member of our community years ago when the topic was discussed, when he had a desire and was discussing it with a family member. But Anand Shravak decided to take Sanlekhna, and while he is deeply into his sadhana of Sanlekhna, he's given up eating and drinking anything, and he is so completely engrossed in peace, in his calmness, and is so engrossed within his soul, his mind and his soul continue to become purer and purer. He started shedding a lot of Gnana Varniya karma, and a lot of the other Gnana Varniya karma got destroyed and a lot got settled down. And as a result of that, he attained Audignan, meaning that he could see and understand all material things within a certain distance. And the extent of that was so great. What is described here, કર્મનો ક્ષય થતા ઉપસમ થયો અને એને અવધિજ્ઞાન પ્રાપ્ત થયું. તે ત્યાં જ રહ્યો પૂર્વ, પશ્ચિમ અને દક્ષિણમાં 500 યોજન સુધીના લવણ સમુદ્રના ક્ષેત્રને ઉત્તરમાં ચુલ હિમંત વર્ષધર પર્વત સુધી ઉપર સૌ ધર્મ કલ્પ સુધી. So he could actually see what was happening in the Devloks. And નીચે રત્નપ્રભા પૃથ્વીમાં Luluchya Narak Pruthina, and he could also see what was happening in the Narak down below. So the extent of his Audignan extended in all 4 directions significantly and up and down. So he sees them and understands them. So everything that is happening as it is happening. And that is what Audignan does. But the extent to which his Audignan actually extended was extremely unusual in somebody who was not yet a Muni Bhagwant or a Sadhu or a Sadhuji Bhagwant. Just at that time, Bhagwan Mahavir came back to the same area, and he settled in Deipal Palasai Chaitya, and Indrabhuti Gautam was there. And it says what the daily lifestyle of Gautam Swami was. In the first part of the day, he would do Swadhyay. In the second part, he would do Dhyan. And in the third part, he would do Padilehan of his Mupati, his things that he would have. And then he would take permission from Bhagwan Mahavir and go to the town to get some food. And he would go to different parts of the town or city or village or wherever they were. And it says that he would go to Unch, Neech, and a Madhyam Kudoma Bhiksha Nemate Farta. So he was not selective that I will only go to the best households so that I can get better food. He would go anywhere without any particular distinction because the interest was not in getting good food. The interest was in getting something that was appropriate and something that Sadhu Sadhuji Bhagavan could consume. And on that day, as he's returning from having taken some gochari, he hears that Anand Shravak ઔષધ વ્રતમાં સંલેખના કરીને રહ્યો છે. એટલે કે આનંદ શ્રાવક has taken a vow to fast unto death and he is not far away from here. So he goes in that direction to see Anand Shravak. And when he is there in Anand Shravak's presence, Anand Shravak is lying on a mat and apologizes that it is so fortunate for me that you have come so far, but please excuse me that I cannot get up from this particular mat that I am lying down on because I do not have the strength. But if you do not mind, please come near so I can see you and I can bow down to you. I can pay my respects to you. So Gautam Swami goes there and Anand Shravak then asks, because the experience of having achieved Audignan is something very new to him, and he may not have had knowledge about this before. So he says, well, I've got Guru Gautam Swami in front of me. So he asks him, can a Shravak attain Audignan? And Guru Gautam Swami says, yes, of course, he can. And he says, then I have achieved or I have acquired Audignan or I've achieved Audignan and I can see everything that's happening around to the extent of 500 yojans in all directions. દક્ષિણમાં અહીં રહ્યો પૂર્વ પશ્ચિમ અને દક્ષિણમાં 500 યોજન સુધીના લવણ સમુદ્રના ક્ષેત્રને ઉત્તરમાં ચુલ હિમવંત વર્ષતર પર્વત સુધી ઉપર સૌધર્મ કલ્પ સુધી અને નીચે રત્ન ભામામાં લોલુચ નરક સુધીના ક્ષેત્રને જાણી શકું છું. ગૌતમ સ્વામી Gautam Ganadhar, Gautam Swami says, look, that is impossible. That is such. And Gautam Swami, we must remember, also had Audignan. He also had Manparayognan at that time. And he tells him, Anand Shravak, that that is not right. You are wrong. A Shravak cannot extend or cannot actually attain such extensive Audignan. It is very vast. What you are saying you've achieved and what you are uttering is actually an untruth. So you need to apologize for that. So Anand Shravak then asks him, in Bhagwan Mahavir's Sasan, in his Tirth, does the one who has said an untruth have to apologize or the one that who has said the truth has to apologize? And Guru Gautam Swami says, of course, it is the one who has said the untruth. Then Anand Shravak tells him, then it is you who need to apologize because you have said the untruth. I have actually attained that extent of Audignan. So Guru Gautam Swami is puzzled, but without any emotion that is ungenerous or in any way critical, he returns back, goes to Bhagwan Mahavir and asks him, is it possible for a householder or a Shravak or a Shravika to attain Audignan to this extent? Because Anand Shravak, Bhagwan obviously knows. And Bhagwan says yes, and it is correct that Anand Shravak has actually attained that level of Audignan. Because Bhagwan Mahavir can see that in his Keval Gnan, Gautam Swami has yet not attained Keval Gnan. And Bhagwan Mahavir tells him that it is you who must apologize. So just imagine Gautam Swami, without any hesitation, goes back, makes that journey back to Anand Shravak, goes in front of him, joins his hand and says, I apologize, I was wrong, you were right, I made a mistake. Bhagwan Mahavir has corrected my mistake. And just imagine who is this person who is the chief disciple of Bhagwan Mahavir. Guru Gautam Swami is one person who had such great powers, and anybody who took Diksha from him almost always attained Keval Gnan. And there are so many other monks that who attained Keval Gnan long before Guru Gautam Swami attained Keval Gnan, and all of them had been inspired by him and taken Diksha under his care. And such a person with that level of that extent of his prestige, he has no hesitation in going back to an ordinary Shravak, a great Shravak, but still a Shravak, and apologize to him and says, I was wrong, you were right. And at the end, it says that what happens to Anand Shravak total as a Shravak, he spends 20 years. He follows all his vows diligently, and we heard what else he did. And he dies very peacefully, Samadhi Purvak. And he is born in Saudharma Devlok, Arun Vimanma Dev Thayo. And in his next life, he will be born in Mahavide Kshetra and achieve moksha in that next life. So at the moment, Anand Shravak is in Saudharma Devlok. That is the end of today's class story. Next week, we will talk about Kamdev Shravak. That narrative is pretty short. We won't go into the details of the vows. We will focus on one particular incident that makes him the person that we remember. And we will talk about Kamdev Shravak, and if you have time, we will start with the third Shravak as well next week. And his name was Grupati Chulani Pita. So thank you all very much. Any questions? I know it's late, but if there are any questions, we can spare a few minutes.
Ajitbhai,
Yeah.
just that word pratima has been used. I've never heard that before. This is the first time I've heard that word. So
Yeah.
is it some sort of a vow, or what exactly is it?
It's a system of conduct. It is vows, yes, and then these are detailed and specific. And we mentioned this during Kalpsutra Vanchan,
Mm-hmm.
but to understand them, we would probably need to go into a lot more detail. But remember the word Agyar Pratima and ask me at another time, and maybe if we resume the Saturday, you're Nilma, yes?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
so if we resume the Saturday morning in-person classes, then we could take one class on the Agyar Pratima.
Okay, thank you. It's just that so it's different to that 12.
Yes, it's different to those 12 hours.
Oh, okay.
It's advanced practice, basically.
Oh, okay, because I've never heard that word before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. No other questions. Let's end this class. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of Tirthankar Paramatma, Guru Bhagwans and Jain Dharma, I ask for forgiveness. Jinagna Virud Kain Pan Boli Ho, Te Sabi Ho Manochan Kaya Kare, Tasmichami Dukudam, Suramangala Mangalyam, Surkalyan Karanam, Pradhanam, Surdharmanam, Janam Jeti, Sasanam. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ajitbhai.
Thank you.
Zoom team as well.
Thank you, Ajitbhai.
Thank you, Meera Darshana. Goodbye.